Hello and welcome. So I'm going to need you to stop what you're doing and get some headphones and start concentrating. You remember the ToneX, right? Great profiling, amazing price point, nice and compact. Well, what's this? What is this? Is this even real? And why have I got two of them? It's never going to end, is it, this relentless progress of guitar tech? So a lot of us thought that the ToneX was a bit of a game changer with fantastic profiling at a fraction of the cost of the Kemper and the rest of them. And I am somewhat blown away to be saying that we have the same sounding tech in a mini pedal for $200. So when they first put the ToneX out, I am not actually sure that IK knew quite what they had on their hands and how popular it was going to be. It, in my opinion, was unusually disruptive, bringing that quality of amp sound in a stompbox at that price. But the ToneX One, I think, has the potential to be even more wild than that. I don't know about you, but my journey with profiling started off with making tons and tons of presets with umpteen different amp profiles. In my case, the Kemper, and I would be switching between amps all night. One amp for this, one amp for that, one amp for something else. My whole approach with the whole profiling thing now is to use one or two amplifiers for more or less everything, maybe clean and dirty, do the rest with pedals. So this, oh baby. Now I managed to talk IK into giving me two of these now, and that's for good reason. So the first reason, stereo rig. Second reason, biamping. Third reason, stompbox into amp. So with two of these, if you've got some stereo modulation pedals or stereo delays, you can now on your board have a full stereo rig direct to the PA system, or in the case of the demo that I just played, directly to the interface. There was no production on the guitar tracks there, by the way. There was one instance of Echo Boy on the final solo, but everything else, there are no effects, there's no EQ, nothing. Just the ToneX profiles that came on the pedal, recorded to and panned. So all aspects of the guitar sound are made on the board. And by the way, we're talking a Soul Food, Budget, OCD, Common, Timeline, Flint, and a little bit of Mobius for a phaser. So very straightforward, really, except that we have two parallel paths through the ToneX pedal. So the guitar signal splits and goes phaser and stuff, then into stereo and through it. So let's just come back to the potential of this pedal for a second. You may already know you can capture your amp using the ToneX software on your computer, or you can download profiles. If you haven't already looked at the ToneNet and all of the profiles that you can get and buy, you might be surprised because they have gone hard at this. There's official Mr. Boogie collaborations, all sorts of stuff, like 20,000 plus user profiles, packs you can buy. Now, people have done technical comparisons of the original ToneX against the Kemper and the Quad Cortex, and the ToneX comes out really well. So we already know that sonically it's up there, if not the best sounding profiler. Now push the price of it right down and make it tiny, and start thinking about popping overdrives into here too. So if you have two of these, you've got your stereo rig on your board for not very much money. Industry leading profiling, hardly any weight or space penalty. This is gigantic news in my opinion. You can also do biamping, so not just stereo, but biamping. So you have a single signal path all the way to the end where it then splits and goes into two complementary amps, a la the guys on that pedal show, that kind of thing. Now, also, if you sort out the routing, you can have a wet-dry rig as well. So, well, alternatively, why would you want wet-dry? Well, one of the reasons is if you're on in-ears a lot of the time, I am, you may wish to have quite a lot of effects and reverb in your headphones, in your in-ears, but not send quite so much out to the PA system. So you're playing in a big echoey room, you don't need as much reverb, but you'll be playing different places each night, and you may want to adjust how much wetness you want to put into the room. I could rephrase that. So with wet-dry, you'd send just the dry to one amp and just the wet to the other, and the sound man can decide how much goes out into the room. So the idea of having two of these pedals really unlocks so many options that have kind of been unavailable to us for this sort of money. The pedal itself, build quality is good, and there's a little bit to digest with the controls, so let's just check that out quickly. All right, the way we had this set up for the recording was we're going into, I think it's the Flint, the Mobius, then that splits it into the ToneX, the two ToneX, and then it's parallel chains through the timeline, and then it's into the G2 and then out to the interface. They're panned left and right, so. Hopefully you're hearing that. Right, so what I'll do is I'll turn this one down and we'll just work with the one on the left, and I'll put that in mono down the middle, just for the purposes of explaining this. So, the main foot switch, it works in two modes. It's either in a stompbox mode, on and off, or it's in dual mode. Now, if you're using this for your guitar amp, then you're probably going to want it in dual mode. So you might have a variation. So you might have your amp and then your amp pushed, or your amp on channel 1, amp on channel 2, or two different amps. That's the most likely configuration, I think, and that's how it comes as default. You can also hold the button, and now we have a tuner. That's helpful if you're saving weight and space on like a flyboard or something like that. Okay, so then the LED, this sort of status LED, this is actually not just an LED, it's a button. So if you press it once, those knobs start flashing and they enter into their secondary functions. So ordinarily bass, middle, treble, and then this is volume, as you've been seeing. Let's show you those EQs quickly. So bass, mids, and then treble. I think they're quite well voiced, really. And then this is volume. Now, if you press it again, they start to glow, and then this becomes gain. This becomes a gate, a noise gate. Hard to show you with that sound. I'll come back to that, maybe, if I remember. And then compressor. Now, the compressor adds a lot of level. So if you turn it all the way up, you then need to go out of that to the volume. Pull that. It's doing quite a lot of compressing. I don't hate it, actually, the compressor in there. It's a one knob compressor, so you've got to bear in mind that they've developed it for to work with humbuckers, single coils. It's a kind of a best fit basic compressor that works quite well. It sort of sounds like a Boss or I don't know, maybe that's a bit harsh, but it's a basic compressor, but it does do the job, especially on a clean sound, just for evening it out. Let's turn the compression down a bit. Too much gain. Let's turn the volume up. So you'd think that's maybe a bit of a hassle, like pressing the button to go between the secondary and the primary control layers, but it's actually becomes second nature quite quickly. The reverb, maximum is this. So it's kind of like a springy plate, probably a plate. That's about halfway, and then turn it right the way down, off. You see the value of it, right? Just a little smidgen of it. Like something like that. It starts to sound like the guitar is in the room. It starts to sound a lot more, a lot easier to play. Versus. So yeah, that's a nice spot for me. So we've got browsing mode and global mode, which are kind of like the sub level setup options. It's worth just explaining these because it's really well done. Global mode, you can turn on and off cabinets globally. You can also control whether the foot switch is a flip-flop between two different profiles or is on and off. And you have input trim. So to go into global mode, you hold down the Alt button for 6 seconds. So it flashes like that. That's not it. And then there we go. Right. So now we turn the leftmost knob to the left. That is dual mode. Turn it to the right and it becomes stompbox mode. So we'll leave it in dual mode. Cabinet bypass. That's cab on. That's cab off. And that's global, as I say. And then we have input trim. So let's go to the humbucker here. So we're clipping there, which we don't want. Now we've got. So that allows us to set our gain, which is quite a handy feature. For example, if you only play low-powered single coils, you might want to push it a bit. If you're playing active deathbuckers, then you're going to need to dial that back. And then the volume knob becomes the master global output. Okay, so you press the Alt button again. Now we're out of it, back into the top level, if you like. Browsing mode. So you press foot switch and Alt together. And you see it's flashing on the first knob. So now we can cycle through those 20 presets that are loaded into it. You can then go through B, press the foot switch to cycle through. Now we're doing the stompbox one. Also, while you're in there, you press them both again. You can cycle through. And adjust levels. Now press them both again and you're back out. Back in flip-flop mode. Now I was a bit perturbed at having the master volume as a big knob that's knockable, which is essentially like your amp level going to the front of house or whatever. That's this. However, if you hold this for 3 seconds, it's locked. So nothing is changeable. You can do whatever you like and it just stays put. So that is a superb inclusion, I think. And you hold it for 3 seconds to make it come alive again. One thing to note is that the output is actually a TRS jack. So if you plug in a mono cable, it will just get a mono signal out, but you can also plug in headphones or send it as a stereo, like a Y cable, out to the to a mixer or to a whatever. I don't really see the point of that. All you're going to get is maybe the reverb will be in stereo, same as the ToneX. So there's not a great benefit to doing that. But if you want to practice, for example, you can just plug your guitar in there and your headphones into the output of the ToneX One, and you'll have your sound in your ears in stereo. So that's quite a nice little inclusion. So let's look at that gate again. We're using this one. So you can hear the gate working there. So we hit the Alt button. So the gate now is off. I mean, it's a very, very gainy profile. So we just turn it up gradually. And now, maybe that's a little bit low still. Bit more. So as you can hear, it's pretty tight when you turn it up. So the usual kind of gate behavior. It's not noise reduction. It is just a gate. So it's like on or off. And I think it actually works pretty well. Okay. So let's now blend in this other one. We'll go back to stereo. Now, if you're listening in headphones or on studio monitors, you'll hear what's happening texturally here. You'll hear that the two different amp profiles behave differently. They have different attacks. So the sound moves a bit. Anyway, I really like that. So let's now set one up as a stomp box and the other as an amp. So we've rewired a little bit here. This ToneX One is the stomp box mode. We've put it into stomp box mode. So this is the stomp box. So it's just on and off. And this one here is still our amp. So we can turn on the drive. We can change the amp on this. Wow, okay. So 2 ToneX Ones, and we've got 4 sounds. Clean, amp 2, and then drive on, and then clean with drive. So that's nothing kind of revolutionary, but the fact is this could be a Klon and a DS1 or a DS1, or you could have load 20 stomp boxes into it, overdrive pedals into it, and then just choose the ones you want per gig. So your board becomes much more flexible without having to take pedals off. You can just boop, 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 change it, and this is your amp. When you start to think about it, the possibilities become endless, and I can see people putting 3 or 4 of these on their boards in some situations. It takes the usual 9-volt Boss type power supply, and it needs 120 milliamps. So it's more than maybe most overdrive pedals. It's not an overdrive pedal, is it? But it's less than something like a Strymon. You do not get a power supply with it. You get a USB-C cable. I guess that keeps the price a bit lower, a bit less potential waste, and some people are not going to want a power supply anyway. But any standard center negative 9-volt adapter that you plug into the wall is going to work. If you're building it onto a board, because it's a digital pedal, it's worth probably giving it isolated power. If you happen to have the older gig rig power system with distributors and isolators, I know they're very popular. I'm using one here. The isolator will not power it because that only goes up to 100 milliamps. I have tried. The new one, the Gen X 14 will do it. The Strymon stuff will do it. It's not a difficult pedal to power. It's 120 milliamps. You probably want it isolated on a pedal board. So just bear that in mind. That's what you're going to need. You can also power it on with a USB-C battery, those rechargeable batteries. And if you connect it to your computer via USB-C, that will power it with no problem at all and no need for an external power supply. You can use it as a very basic interface, and the profile that's on the pedal will go into the computer sound-wise. It's not like a DI. You'll get this sound, so good for practicing. And it integrates really well with the ToneX app. I'm going to do a separate video on that, but yes, the most important thing is it integrates really well, and you can change the color of the LEDs, which is obviously the most important thing here. So how does this pedal fit in? Honestly, for me, a bit revolutionary, I think. For starters, you might worry about Kemper and the Kemper player. The player is £600 or dollars, and you need an app to use it. It's neither fish nor fowl. It's quite expensive, I think, certainly compared to ToneX. I know you get the effects, but the effects are not great, are they? It's all a bit meh. So it's big, expensive. You're probably going to supplement it with other things. And the profiling itself is no longer unique, and it's been overtaken, I think, with by among other things, the ToneX. I just cannot believe that for 200 quid in a box this size that weighs 160 grams, you've got world-leading profiling technology. You've got a really well-supported app and ecosystem of profiles that you can download. It integrates really solidly with the app. The connection is really solid. Although, to be fair, once you've actually put your profiles onto the pedal, you might never connect it again. You've got 20 slots in here, and it's relatively easy to select which ones are going to be available to you. So once you've sort of set it up, you might just forget all about it, leave it here, and that's your amp. The only thing I wish that they had included that they didn't is an external switching jack, input jack. I would love it if I could change the channels, if you like, using the G2. I'm sure I wouldn't be alone in that. Give it a year, give it 18 months, maybe there'll be the ToneX 2, a bigger box. You'll get dual signal paths, stereo, biamping, MIDI control, all the rest of it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that down the line at some point. So clearly, I think that this is excellent. What do you think? Are you ditching the Kemper? I feel so naughty when I say that. Is it time? Is this enough now to move away from an all-in-one modeler like the Helix and return to like a traditional board with one of these on it for the amp? I'm interested to see you in the comments to see what people think, and let's discuss. Is this possibly the single best value guitar pedal of all time? I would make a case for it. Anyway, let's have an argument down below. Bye-bye.